Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is James, and you are watching the Project Success Cooking Certificate class here on both Instagram Live and on YouTube Live. My name is James, and I usually teach the cooking class at Project Success on Wednesday nights from 6 o'clock until 8 o'clock for a group of Minneapolis high school students. However, since we are not able to get together right now, this is how we're doing cooking class. I'm glad you could join us. Tonight, we are preparing something that I have never prepared before. So I'm taking a risk here, just as many of you may be if you're cooking along with us at home. We'll see how it goes. I have a lot of faith in the people who prepared the menu for us, and so that's why I decided to give it a shot without ever having done it before. But I'm also doing it because if I make mistakes today, hopefully it'll prove to all of you home cooks out there that it is okay to make mistakes. In fact, nearly everybody who has prepared a meal in the past has messed up that meal at least once, and you learn so much more by messing up than you do by getting it right. So if I mess up today, I'm just gonna chalk it up to learning. I have enough ingredients that I can make it twice if I need to. So here's what we're making tonight. There are some clues here you may have figured out. So we have this thing here for all of our viewers in England. I don't know how many there are. I really doubt any at all. This is not shredded wheat. No, this is ramen. We are going to be making ramen this week. So one of the things that has been successful in the past at the Project Success Cooking Certificate is taking regular old ramen that you get at the grocery store and finding ways to make it a little bit more fancy. I avoid using that word when I can, because to me it means that things that are delicious and things that are complex are not for all of us. It's only for fancy people. It's only people who have money or resources or training. But to me, these foods that we are going to be preparing today, they're for everybody. So they're not fancy. They're for all of us. They're just different from if you just take this ramen package and you throw it in the water with the flavors sachet. Is that what you call that? Like a I think it's a sachet. So today we're going to be preparing a style of ramen that I read about and I watched a video about on Bon Appetit. So if you don't yet follow Bon Appetit on YouTube, I highly recommend that you do. This recipe was prepared by Andy Baragani, and it is a style of ramen that does not have a broth. It's a style that's prepared using a miso pesto sauce. A lot of times when we think about pesto, we think about Italian food, if we think about it at all. But this has a miso flavoring in it that gives it some of that umami flavor that we associate oftentimes with Asian cuisine. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cook our noodles. So I've got a pot right here. It's a pretty small pot, but it'll do for me because I'm just preparing food for 2 people. I'm going to fill this up most of the way. Some people try to save time by heating up the water or using hot water from their tap. That's never made a whole bunch of difference to me. So there we go. I've got the water, and now you might be wondering, how much water did you use? It doesn't really matter all that much, but for the noodles, just so long as they're covered. But we're going to be using that water for 2 separate things today. We're going to be using it for noodles, and we're also going to be using it for eggs. So for the noodles, I'm going to add in some salt, like I always do. I'm using sea salt. You can use kosher salt. You can use regular old salt that you would use for anything else. When you're cooking noodles, one good rule of thumb is that your water should taste like the sea. So it's salty enough that it tastes like the sea. If it's not, then your pasta will come out under-seasoned, regardless of what kind of pasta you're preparing, whether it is a ramen noodle or regardless of whether it's an Italian noodle. I don't think that's going to be enough, but I'm going to mix it around a little bit and taste it. Let's see. Nope, not even nearly enough. Okay, so let's add some more. I just prepared some noodles last night for some macaroni and cheese, and so that's about how much salt I used then. Let's check it out. Oh, yep. That reminds me of visiting my parents in San Diego and going to one of the beaches. That is sea salty water. So now I'm going to start up my heat. High heat is fine because I want it to go to a boil. Your water will boil faster if you cover your pot, so I'm going to do that. And now I'm going to walk away from that for right now, and I'm just going to check in on it from time to time to see how it's doing. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to prepare our pesto. If you've never had pesto before, it's a green sauce that is oftentimes used to coat pasta, as opposed to being a brothy kind of sauce or like an Alfredo sauce that's thick and you can scoop it up with a spoon. It's designed to coat the pasta or the noodle. So that's what we're going to do today. This particular pasta is a cilantro, or pesto is a cilantro pesto. Some people hate the flavor of cilantro. Here's an interesting fact. There are a certain percentage of the world's population that cannot eat cilantro because to them, it tastes exactly like dish soap. So whenever they eat something with cilantro in it, they think that the chef has done something wrong. They're like, oh no, they prepared this meal in soapy dishes. But that's not actually the case at all. And they just probably used cilantro, and that's not something that they can eat. So if you're looking for a substitute for cilantro, maybe add more spinach, which we're going to be adding to our pesto. Some people use parsley as a substitution. I'm one of the folks that doesn't love parsley, and I don't even think they're similar flavors. But if you're looking for something else leafy and green that you can add, you can give that a try. Okay, so we're going to take 2 cups of spinach. This is more than that. This is more than, 4 cups of spinach. This might be more than that, but I really like spinach, and so I'm not really worried about that. I'm going to add it to a blender. Here's my blender right here. What brand have we got? Black & Decker. There's my brand plug. If I say that enough, then maybe they will give us free stuff. So here we go. There's some spinach. I don't have a huge blender, so I may have to not use all of the spinach in this round. Certainly not going to use that leaf that just fell on the floor. I'm going to let it sit there and grow into a spinach tree. Okay, so there we go. Got some spinach in there. That'll do for now. It's about half of the spinach that I planned on using, but that's okay. Next, cilantro. So I have a whole bunch of cilantro here, literally a whole bunch. I've already rinsed it off. I'm going to give it another rinse just to be sure. There we go. And a lot of times when we chop up cilantro, we will take the blade of a knife and we will run it along the bunch of cilantro, which shaves off the leaves. The first time I did that, I was like, how am I supposed to do this in a way that will keep any stems from getting into whatever it is I'm preparing? I didn't realize that it's imprecise. It doesn't matter if there are a few stems. In most cases, we usually cut up cilantro very, very small if we're going to put it as an ingredient to something. So you don't have to worry too much about that. In this case, you have to worry even less because the stems are actually part of what's giving it the flavor. Stems have a more intense cilantro flavor than the leaves do. And that is fine by us in this recipe. So here we go. As you can see, I just chopped off most of the stems, but the stems that are attached to the leaf are still there. In they go. Next, I'm going to use miso. So miso is a flavor that is unique to Japanese cooking. It's not a common ingredient for a lot of North American households to keep around. So if you don't happen to have any miso in your household, then you can feel free to use soy sauce. A lot of folks use soy sauce for a similar flavor. And if you don't have soy sauce around, maybe try fish sauce. If you don't have fish sauce around, you can use salt. Some people use tahini. Really what you're looking for here is that savory umami flavor. That's what you're looking for. So for the miso, we're going to use a let's say a teaspoon roughly of this. If I can get the lid off. There we go. I'm not going to measure it out. I'm just going to eyeball it. Okay. Go. Next, we need garlic, and one of my least favorite things to do is to mince garlic. I like to smash it, but I don't like to mince it. It takes too long. It's too fiddly. So I don't have to worry about that with this recipe. We're going to be blending it. So I'll chop off the top and the bottom. I'll get rid of the skin, okay, and knock a spoon on the floor. And I smashed it anyway, just because, I don't know, I like to do that. And also because when I smash garlic, I'm convinced that I'm helping to release some of that aroma and flavor. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. Okay, next I'm going to take some oil. I'm going to use vegetable oil, but you can use any neutral oil. In other words, any oil that doesn't have a strong flavor. You're going to want a ½ cup of that oil. So I'm going to use my tiny little Pyrex here to measure out a ½ cup. How's our water doing? Not there yet. We're getting close. A little bit more oil. A little bit more oil. There we go. We're going to add that. Typically speaking, when you blend something, you want to have some liquid in there. Otherwise, the dry ingredients don't make as much contact with the blade. So that's the oil that's not going to taste like much of anything. The oil that we are going to add that does taste like something is toasted sesame oil, which is a handy oil to keep around if you ever cook anything that is even vaguely Asian. I am going to grab a knife to open the top of that. So the reason why we added that vegetable oil is different from why we're going to add, well, I'm not doing that very safely, am I? I'm going to concentrate on opening this bottle so I don't end up causing some sort of horrible, gory accident in front of the camera. It is a stubborn bottle. The reason why we are adding the vegetable oil, which you can also use grapeseed oil or some other kind of neutral oil, is because we want the quality of the pesto to be velvety, and that helps with that. That's why we're not using water. Okay, so finally I managed to get the top off with my toasted sesame oil, and I want about a teaspoon of that. I like the flavor of it though, so I probably added a bit more than that. Toasted sesame oil tastes like toasted sesame seeds. So, and then we're going to add some lemon juice. You can decide how much you want to add. A teaspoon is recommended. More than that will make your pesto taste more tart. That's not a flavor I love, so I'm not going to put in a whole lot more than that. Okay, next I am going to cover the top of my blender, and I'm going to turn this into the pesto that will coat our noodles. Okay. I might need my wooden spoon to take the hilt of it and push down on the ingredients that are inside the blender so that they can make contact with the blades. Let's give it a try. I can only imagine how great that sounds on Instagram and YouTube. Probably just fantastic. I get a little ambitious there. Much more gradual process than I would like. As I say, my first time preparing this, I wonder if we need more liquid in there, but I don't want to add more because I don't want it to become thin, you know? I'll be working on that in a moment, but in the meantime, I noticed that my water has come to a boil, so I'm going to add in my noodles now. I'm just going to slip them in there. I'm going to do 2 separate packets. So I use the top ramen noodles, which I ate a lot of when I was in college. A lot of people do. And I'm also going to use these other ramen noodles that they happen to have at the store. They were almost all out of top ramen. So There we go, there's the other one. And I'm gonna let that cook at that temperature for about 4 minutes. Okay, let's get back to our pesto. I love how long it's taking to do this part, considering the fact that you just have to sit there and listen to me grind this up. And my blender is telling me that it needs a little bit of a break. It's actually overheating, so I'm going to unplug it, give it a chance to cool down a little bit, and then we'll go back to it. But I can show you what we've got so far. So you can see there, yep, on both of the cameras, that we're seeing what we want on the bottom here, and now we're just waiting for these top leaves here to make their way down to the blade. So we'll wait for the blender to cool off, and then we'll do that. In the meantime, I'm going to start to prepare the eggs. So the kind of egg we're going to be preparing today is not a hard-boiled egg. It's going to be a soft-boiled egg. So this is an egg that will have a hardened white, but the yolk will be still liquidy. The way that a lot of people prepare their eggs for a ramen meal is by soft boiling them and then putting the soft-boiled egg in a marinade. And they let it sit in that marinade for a day, maybe 2 days. And after having done that, the marinade will have made the white of the egg a little tougher and added flavor to the egg. So the texture then is much more solid than what we would typically associate with a soft-boiled egg, but the yolk is still sort of gelatinous. So if you've ever had ramen in a restaurant before, especially a good ramen restaurant, that's probably what they're doing. In some ramen restaurants, though, I have had a straight-up hard-boiled egg with my ramen, so it just depends on where you go, I guess. Okay, the noodles are starting to cook. Okay, it's looking good. I'll let that keep on going. All right, so the way that I'm going to prepare my soft-boiled egg first, before I do anything else, is I'm going to pierce it. So I'm going to use a pocket knife to do this, and I'm going to the base of my egg. So, nope, yep. And I'm going to take my pocket knife, and I'm going to make a tiny little hole in the bottom. Perfect. I'm going to show you what that looks like. I don't know if the camera for either my webcam or my phone is going to be good enough to pick that up, but there's a tiny little hole I've made in the bottom here that you can barely even see. You don't have to worry about the egg coming out of the bottom. It won't do that. The reason why we do this is because you probably had the experience before of having difficulty peeling a hard-boiled or a soft-boiled egg, but when you pierce the bottom like this, it changes the way that it cooks, and it becomes easier to peel off the egg, or sorry, the shell of the egg. So that's the first time I've attempted that, and so I practiced piercing the egg earlier today, but I haven't cooked it with a hole in it before, so I'm excited to see what happens. Okay, let's get back to our pesto again, and let's see if we can make some impact here. We are so close. We are so close. Let me check on my noodles. Looking good. Looking good. Some people break up their noodles before they put them in the water. I don't. Because they break up on their own. Spoon is getting some good use today. Perfect. That's perfect. So I'm going to show you the consistency of that. It looks like a like one of those shakes that some people eat for breakfast if they don't like actual food. So look at that. That is, boy, that was judgy, wasn't it? If you enjoy a shake for breakfast, keep on doing you. All right, so there we go. We've got our pesto prepared now. Now that's just waiting on the noodles, which are getting very close to being done. Okay. Yep, perfect. That's great. There are lots of different kinds of ramen noodles, and you can certainly get more expensive ones if you want to. If you want to get something that's closer to the restaurant experience. For me, I'm just fine with top ramen for what we are doing today. I have a small kitchen, y'all. I have to make room for things as I go. Okay, here we go. So the noodles are great, and I realized that I made a key mistake. So my mistake was I was hoping on fishing the noodles out of the hot water so I could use that same hot water to prepare my eggs, but instead I emptied all of that glorious hot water out into my colander and down the sink. At least I can show you what my noodles look like. There we go. So some of them are green, some of them are paler than that. Those are the two different kinds that I was using. All right, so one faster way to boil water is using a kettle. So I'm going to use my tea kettle here to boil up some water that we can use for our eggs. So I've already pierced one egg. I'm going to pierce the other one using my pocket knife. You can use a noodle. A noodle? That would be difficult, right? You can use a needle to do the same thing. It goes to show you that a vowel sound makes all the difference. Oh, cracked it. I'll use that one for scrambled eggs later. There we go. That's just fine. Okay, great. All right, so while that water is boiling, I want to talk a little bit about the marinade that some folks use when they are preparing their eggs for ramen. I thought this was really interesting. They use soy sauce, which covers that umami, salty flavor, but then they also will use a kind of Japanese wine that has a sweeter flavor. They want to take both the sweet and the salty and mix those together so that it penetrates the white of the egg, and that's what gives it its signature flavor. It also changes the color of it. So if you ever go to a ramen restaurant and you order a ramen that has an egg on it and you're like, oh, this is off color, is this okay? It's better than okay, it's what you want. Ideally, that's what you're looking for. Okay, so I'm going to take my noodles here and I'm going to add the pesto to them. Let's see, I think I'm going to use, yeah, we can use this bowl, that's fine. So I've got my noodles, I want to kind of mix them up a little bit. I want the green noodles to mix up with the white noodles, so it looks like that's all on purpose. Okay. Then I'm going to take my pesto and I'm just going to straight pour it in there. I can't believe I forgot such an important step. I haven't tasted any of this yet. Let's see what my pesto tastes like. Oh, wow. That's a surprising flavor. That is much more, it's a much more mellow flavor than I was expecting. I was thinking it was going to be much more acidic, much more lemony. I was thinking that miso might have a bit more of an acidic tang to it as well, but instead it's a really mellow, warm, toasty kind of flavor, and it's probably getting a lot of its flavor from the toasted sesame oil. So I don't want to waste any sauce, and so I'm going to find a spatula here that I can use to squeeze this out. Okay. I'm really going to mix this together. Let's see, what do I want to use to do that? I'll try it with the wooden spoon first. Yeah, that's doing the job. I can show you what I'm doing here. My goal here is just to coat the noodles with that pesto. I'm excited to taste the entire thing together. All right, let's grab my fork. Let's give it a try. Look at that. Oh, that's fantastic. I really like that. That is a really unexpected flavor. I love it. It's really green is the only way I know to explain it. Like, it's not just green in terms of color, which as you can see, it's extremely green, but it tastes green as well. I can taste the vegetation, but not in a gross. You'll find few people who are as anti-leafy green salad as me. I just think it's one of the most boring foods you can possibly eat. So if I would rather take all of those leafy greens, blend them up, and then put them on my noodles here. Okay. Let's see if this is enough water for our eggs. I think it is. Okay. Great. Let's take our eggs, the ones that we've pierced. And I'm going to use a slotted spoon. Some people have a metal implement that they can use for the same thing, but slotted spoon works just fine. It's covered by the water. And then we're going to let that go for 6 minutes. So when you're cooking eggs, timing is everything. And if you want a perfect soft-boiled egg, 6 minutes is what you're aiming for. One of the things I want to draw your attention to is that I did not allow the eggs to cook while the water was heating up. That is something that I did for years and years and years until I realized that I was getting different results from different pots and pans. So if you're using a stainless steel pot or pan, then that will have a very different impact on the egg and its consistency than if you're using like a non-stick or something like that. And the reason why is because these pans take a different amount of time to heat up, and thus the water takes a different amount of time to boil. So if I am putting an egg in a stainless steel pan and I'm allowing it to cook for 6 minutes, that 6 minutes is going to be really different than if I use a different consistency or material pan, because the water will be heating up and boiling at a different rate. So now what I do instead is I measure the amount of time that I'm cooking the egg in the boiling water. So I start the timer once I put the egg in, once the water is already boiling. So that way it doesn't matter what kind of pan I'm using, I'm cooking the egg in boiling water, and boiling water is boiling water, right? So there we go, it's going. It's looking good. I don't see any of the egg leaking out the hole at the bottom, so that's good too. I'm wondering if anybody has any strategies that they use for keeping their eggs easy to peel or keeping their eggs from splitting while they're cooking or anything like that. If you have anything like that, feel free to add it in the chat. I will take a look at that later on. I know that there are some people who do these kinds of videos who find it very easy to sort of like interact and comment while they're cooking or whatever. But I really genuinely am a one thing at a time type person. If I try to read through and respond to comments and stuff, the next thing I know, my hair is on fire. So just for the safety of me and the idea that I don't think anybody here probably wants to watch a video in which the cook becomes completely burned up because they were trying to respond to comments on the internet, I'll just let you all comment now and I'll get back to you later on, maybe in the next video. Speaking of the next video, if you are part of the Project Success Cooking Certificate class, you receive an email most weeks letting you know when we are cooking together or separately, and how you can find the ingredients that you need. We're changing the way that we're doing this moving forward. So starting next week, I'm going to be sending you all an email, most likely on Monday. And in that email, you'll find a link to a website and a password. When you go to that website and you use the password, you'll find not only what we're cooking that week, but you're also going to find a shopping list, and you're going to find resources about what we cooked the previous week. So you'll find this video, you'll find some other videos that talk about what I was describing, the way that we prepare the eggs, for example, the history of ramen, some of the kinds of things that we would typically discuss if we were all getting together at the Institute. I'm going to put those things there to make this less of a cooking show, a much more of a cooking class, which is what it's always been and what I want it always to continue to be. 2.5 minutes left on those eggs. I'm going to take a sip of water as I can hear that my voice is starting to shred. One of the things that we can add to our bowl of ramen, which I'm going to put in my cracked bowl here, is we can add some more sesame seeds to the top if we like that sort of, I don't know, I was going to say smoky sesame flavor, but it's only really that if you toast the sesame seeds, which I'm not going to do because I am lazy. When I watched Andy from Bon Appetit plate this dish, it was amazing to watch the way that he used his tongs to perfectly arrange the noodles. And when he was done, I was like, oh my gosh, that looks fantastic. I do not have his skills. So mine looks a little sloppier, but that's okay. It still looks cool. I just love that color. And I'm going to take some sesame seeds, add them to the top. And then y'all already know how I feel about soy sauce. It is one of my great passions in life. So I'll take my Kikkoman soy sauce. I'm advertising it so that they will give me some free stuff. There's very little chance they will do that, but you know, if there is any chance at all, it's worth it to me. About a minute left on the eggs. I'm excited to see how they turn out. Like I say, I've never done the thing before where you pierce the bottom. So if it's easy to pierce, I'm excited about that. One of the things we have to prepare for our eggs is a bath. So I'm going to grab another bowl. Do I have enough bowls in my kitchen to do this? Yep, I'm going to take my tomatoes out of this bowl. And I put some water in it, not warm water. I want it to be cold water. And furthermore, I want it to be icy water, because as soon as I take those eggs out, I want them to stop cooking. I'm getting some ice. I'll be right back. In so many of the videos I watched, people were doing this with those really cool fridge ice things where you can sort of put your bowl underneath some spout on your refrigerator and magically the ice cubes just come out. I still have one of these old-fashioned ice cube trays, but what are you gonna do? All right, so here we go. I'm gonna turn off the heat on my eggs. I've got my ice water bath for them. What we're going to do with these eggs, once everything's done and dusted, is we're going to cut them in half and we're going to lay them down on top of our ramen. And the way that we eat them is you might grab a bite of the noodles and then you add a little bite of the egg as well. You want that to sort of mix around. Some people, if their yolk is really runny, is they'll mix together the egg and the noodles because they want the yolk from the egg to mix around with everything else. This particular recipe didn't even call for the soft-boiled eggs, but personally, to me, ramen isn't ramen without soft-boiled eggs. That's a personal favorite of mine. You don't have to do the soft-boiled eggs if you don't want them, but to me, it's just essential. Let's see if we're cooling off here. I'm gonna let one of those eggs continue to cool. I've only had it in there for like less than a minute, and so the ice bath probably hasn't had much of an effect on it. both of the eggs, but I want to show you what it'll look like when they're all done. And as I say, I'm just super curious about how easy this egg is to peel. Let's give it a shot. So I cracked the egg where the hole was. And what I'm noticing already is that this is extremely easy to peel because there is water in between the egg peel and the egg. Which means that as I am peeling this, I'm able to keep more of the egg intact instead of scraping divots out of the egg as I peel it. It is very soft. Maybe too soft. This could probably benefit from another minute in the water. Oh, I managed to do it. Okay. So now I'm going to take this, I'll place it on top of my miso, or sorry, my ramen. And what's this knife? I'm going to use a little knife here that has a serrated edge, as I would with a tomato or something else that has a very tender surface. Well, it ain't pretty, but it's done. There we go. Ooh, I'm trying to make it look better for y'all. Okay. Here we go. This is what it looks like. There's my soft-boiled egg. And I think oh, there we go. There's my soft-boiled egg on top of the ramen. I'm going to have a couple of bites of this, and then I'll let you all go. Let's give this a try. Yeah, that egg is too soft. I think when doing this again, I'm definitely going to do a couple more minutes on the egg, or at least one more minute. Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. That's dinner for sure. That will do. Okay, thanks everybody for joining us this week. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. Maybe you have something to teach us. If you do, that's fantastic. I know that some folks next week are going to be preparing their food along with us for sure, and so we're going to be hearing more from some students who are part of our cooking certificate next week. Thank you for joining us. If you have any requests for things that you want to learn how to cook, then just let us know in the comments, or you can always email us at programs@projectsuccess.org, or you can reach me directly at jamesr@projectsuccess.org. Have a great evening, everybody.